The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, we're here again with vBrownbag US, still continuing down the VCP6-DCV track, and tonight we're on Objective 4.1. A few show notes before we get started for those of you just listening to the recording. You can always follow us on Twitter at vBrownbag, or at vBrownbagLatam, or at vBrownbagEMEA. Twitter hashtag is hashtag vBrownbag. For those of you who want to ask questions via Twitter, please do so. Or we can answer your questions right here in the GoToMeeting as well if you're attending. For all of our broadcasts, you can check out in the APAC region every other Thursday at 9 p.m. NZST. EMEA is Tuesdays at 7 p.m. BST. Latin America is Thursdays at 7 p.m. Pacific, and of course US is Wednesdays 7:30 p.m. Central. So our guest host tonight is Manny Sidhu at Manny Sidhu 2, and I'm your host, as always, Lauren Malhoit at Malhoit on Twitter. So with that, I will give the control over to Manny.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm just going to move my focus over to my second screen. Let's see how I can do that. Screen of second monitor. So, Lauren, can you see my PowerPoint and my lab at the back? Can you?
Yep, that's what we see in About Me, yep.
That's fantastic. All right, guys, there's a lot to cover today, so let's get started. So that's my name, Manny Sidhu. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. Land of Down Under, that's what they call us. That's my Twitter, as Lauren just pointed out, and I blog at virtual10.com. I do a lot of blogging about VROPs these days and done a fair bit about log inside. I'm a bit of a certification buff. I've got a few. So if you want to look me up, you can look me up on Twitter and on LinkedIn. All right, like I said, there's a lot to cover, so let's get cracking. So that's what we're going to cover today. So basically the VCP 4.1 and 4.2 blueprints. I just bring my blueprint up. So the blueprint should always be a point of reference for any exam, basically, but especially for the VCP exam. This window refuses to come over, so anyways, it refuses to come over. So I'll just say that we're going to cover the upgrade requirements for ESXi. We're going to upgrade the VDS, VMware tools. We're going to upgrade VM hardware, and we'll do all that using vCenter Update Manager or VUM. And we'll talk about how an in-place upgrade is better in certain scenarios. We won't be upgrading a VCSi today because I'm running out of disk space. I don't have a VCSi installed, but we definitely talk about it. And we talk about the different methods of upgrading vCenter and troubleshooting any errors that you may come across. So obviously, there's a lot of deployment scenarios that are out there, so obviously we can't cover all of them. So I'll try to cover a few. And I'll definitely run you through a lab as well that I've got going here. I've done a couple of 3 dry runs, so hopefully we won't run into any issues, but let's see what happens. You never know what computers do. All right, so we've covered that. So these 3 URLs are, you should bookmark them at all times for your upgrade. So that's the upgrade center that VMware have. So it tells you the various functionalities that you get when you upgrade to vSphere 6, and there's a pretty good KB article about the upgrade sequence and the interoperability matrix. So this matrix is essential. So if you want to see if your host hardware is going to be supported on vSphere 6, that's where you go and check it out. Same applies for your databases, for any other vSphere solutions too. So VROPs, Log Insight, Hyperic, you name it, it's on there. Just for reference, we will open. Anyway, so that's the update sequence. Really pretty good article too. And we'll talk about the recommended topologies for vSphere 6.0 deployment, and that's the interoperability matrix. So just so you know, so just to quickly demonstrate this, so if you want to see which database works for vCenter server, choose vCenter, choose the version that you're going to deploy, and select the database that you think that you're going to have. So let's say we go latest greatest, so 2014 SQL standard, and of course the green check mark means that this is supported and it'll work. So with that, come back to my PowerPoint. Obviously, I didn't want to do a whole lot of PowerPoint slides, but for this kind of brown bag, I think I thought maybe I should put together a few, so for future reference, people can look at this. So my notable tips for upgrades are: you must perform upgrades in sequence. This is critical. You want to avoid data loss. I'm sure everyone wants their weekends, so it's best to do things in a proper sequence. You must at all times verify compatibility and interoperability. You make sure things work. You don't want to run into any issues later, so just make sure that you cover your bases basically. And obviously, always take reliable full backups. So I always say full backups because some people think an incremental backup is good enough, or it may be good enough, but it takes longer to recover, as you may know, from a incremental backup. So you got to go all the way back to your full backup. And you always got to keep your future setup in mind. So let's say if you think that you're going to have a view deployment sometime later, or maybe VRA or vRealize automation sometime later. So that's when your setup needs to be already there. And VMware support rolling upgrades, especially in larger companies where they know that you can't upgrade all your vCenter servers in one hit, or all your hosts in one go, or all your VMs. So especially larger environments, for example, which have hundreds of hosts or tens of thousands of VMs, VMware definitely know that you can't do all of them in one hit. All right, so that's the upgrade process in a nutshell. So we talk about all of these in the future slides, but yeah, let's get cracking on this one. So upgrade or fresh, which one would you do? So if you want to do a fresh install, so that's when you don't care about your historical data, or when, for example, you don't run VROPs, for example, or you're running all your hardware's end of life. When you close to decommissioning your hardware, that's when you would do a fresh install, and you would definitely do an upgrade if you want to conserve your vSphere data, your vCenter database, and if you have other solutions like SRM and View. So once again, so you must verify that you meet all your requirements, hardware and software. So for example, the Windows the vCenter platform service controller, it needs 2 vCPUs and 8 GB of RAM, I think, from memory. Yep, that's right. So 2 vCPUs and 8 GB of RAM from memory. If the PSC VM or physical server doesn't have that, it's going to bomb the upgrade or the installation, and you're going to make sure you bump it up. So once again, reliable backups. I can't stress this enough. I've been in a few situations where in my previous jobs, sometimes when in labs and sometimes even in production, when there weren't reliable backups and bad things happened. And you must make sure that all your third-party solutions must work with 6.0. For example, your backups especially are a culprit. So the backup vendors usually lag behind. So you just got to make sure that your backup solution supports vSphere 6.0. They usually, like I said, they usually lag behind. So things like auto deploy will also get upgraded along with vCenter, and you know that the vCenter services get consolidated. And the next process is to upgrade SSO to your platform service controller. And if you have if you run custom SSL certificates for your environment, you've got to make sure that you set the certificate mode to custom. You just got to make sure that you do this before you install vCenter to save you a lot of work. Because if you do it after, then you got to deploy the host the certificates to all hosts again. Instead, if you did it just before you upgraded vCenter, then the hosts automatically get the VMCA certificate. So just so you know, the VMCA is what is the new VM certificate authority that VMware have in the platform service controller. You would next do a vCenter upgrade. As you know, the concurrent upgrades are not supported and shouldn't be done. And then you would next upgrade VM. Then you would do your host, which can be done, in a variety of ways. You can use VM, you can script it, you can auto-deploy it, ESXi, or pop a disk in if you want to do it interactively. It's all up to you and how it works for you. Larger companies probably do VM or maybe script the whole thing, or maybe even auto-deploy. And then you reconnect host to vCenter. and reapply licenses if you have to. And finally, you upgrade your VMFS, your VMs, and the VM tool and the VM hardware. All right, so the platform service controller. So VMware have come up with this thing called the platform service controller, which actually combines all your single sign-on and your license service, your lookup service, your VMCAs all into one, and your tags as well. It's basically an identity management solution. It's a one-stop shop. When you deploy VCP 6.0, platform service controller is the thing so they've done away with the simple install or the custom install. It's just one or the other. Just with VCP 5.5, there's no database anymore. It's a multi-master replication model, so there's no Active Directory application. I'm not sure what AM stands for, so no ADAM. And the biggest thing is that Windows and Linux work with each other, and now is a good time to move to a Linux VCSA or vCenter server if you're so inclined. Just so you know, with a PSE, multi-site with HA works. So if you've got two data centers and you wish to deploy two platform service controllers, you can do so, and they talk to each other and they talk to the other site PSEs too. The enhanced linked mode. That's where. So let's talk about link mode. So link mode, you don't need to enable link mode anymore. So vCenter servers talking to the same PSE automatically in link mode. And just so you know, this works in the web client only. In the vSphere, if you open up a C# client to a vCenter server, you won't see the other vCenter servers in there. It's only seen via the web client. Your HA requirements. So that'll determine whether you will go with an embedded install or an external install of the platform service controller. And just so you know, it cannot be changed once you've set it up. The only way to change it is to uninstall and reinstall. So make sure that you do. You make sure that you know whether you want an embedded PSE or an external PSE. So this will depend on your current setup, whether you've got a simple install or a custom install. So simple installs when you have the SSO 5.5 and vCenter 5.5 on the same machine. That's when a simple install is, or a custom install when you've deployed SSO externally from your vCenter server. If you've got solutions that require SSO, so multiple vCenter servers, or you've got vRealize automation, or you've got Orchestrator or vRops, you will need to deploy an external PSE. Again, with SRM, I think this was with the pre-GA version. I think it applies with the GA version too, but only the external PSE is supported. So once again, like I talked about the custom certificates before. So if you want to go with custom certificates, that's when you don't have self-signed certificates. You must install the PSE. You must replace a root certificate with a CA signed certificate. There's a process to that. VMware have a pretty good KB article. Plenty of people have blogged about it too. I have too. So take a look at that. And then you install vCenter, and just make sure that you change the certificate mode to custom in vCenter advanced settings. So you got to do this, otherwise if you leave it to default that when you deploy vCenter server and the certificate goes out to all hosts, they won't have their custom certificate anymore. It'll be a VMCA signed certificate. So just make sure that you do this step before you install vCenter server. There are a number of scenarios for the PSE upgrade. I'm just going to bring up those scenarios. They're right here. So these are the recommended topologies by VMware. So the first topology is when you have vCenter server and a platform service controller on the same VM. So if you have 5.5, so this will be your SSO server, and that'll be your vCenter server. That's when you have a single sign-on domain, a single site, and both your SSO and your vCenter server on the same VM. This is definitely supported. If this is how your scenario is, when you pop your disk in, or when you start to upgrade to VCP 6.0, you will only be able to upgrade to a embedded PSE. If that's how your setup is, that you have your SSO VM here and you've got two vCenter servers, you will need to deploy an external PSE. This is what I have in my lab, and that's what I'm going to run you through. So this is typical of lots of companies where they have, you know, vCenter servers running server workloads and VDI workloads, where you have a SSO machine sitting here and two vCenter servers talking to it, and there's a second SSO machine in a second site which has two other vCenter servers talking to it. So when you do that, when you want to upgrade this to vSphere 6.0, you upgrade the first SSO machine to a PSC, then you upgrade the second SSO machine to a PSC, then you start to upgrade your vCenter servers up to vCenter 6.0. If you want high availability for your SSO machines or for your platform service controllers, that's how you do it. So this is quite involved. There's quite a few steps that you need to go through. I think I had it open, not anymore. But yeah, so you got to make sure that the third-party load balancer that you use, your F5s or your NetScalers or whatever you want to use, that is supported. When you want to go from 5.5 to 6.0, it's definitely supported. So there's a whole list of there's 3 deprecated topologies that they have, and that's what it is. So you can't have a embedded PSC and an embedded PSC talking to each other. So like I said before in my PowerPoint slides, so if you envisage that you're going to grow in the future and you may need a third vCenter server or a second vCenter server, it's best to go like that. Make sure that you should deploy an external PSC and then your vCenter servers. This future-proofs you. This is quite essential. So if you went with the embedded install, the only way to go to this is to install PSC on a second VM or a physical machine, and then you manually point your vCenter servers to that machine, and then you decommission the old PSC. That's the only way that you can do it. That's why I said that you got to make sure that you keep your future setup in mind, and you keep your goals in mind, and you keep your solutions, the various solutions that you have in mind. They've also deprecated this, so if you have a PSC, if you have a SSO machine that you upgrade to a platform service controller, you can't attach a vCenter server to that. It'll probably work, but they don't support it, so obviously don't do it. And then finally, the third topology is just that, when they have a SSO machine here and a vCenter server here, and that's just definitely not supported. So like I said, so please bookmark this when you go about upgrading to vSphere 6.0. So going back to my PowerPoint slide, where was I? So yeah, here. So like I said, so when you have a load balancer for larger environments, you must verify it'll work. You must check with in the interoperability metrics that it works. You must check with your vendor too. That's the KB article to go to. I'll just go there quickly if I can open this. So basically what you do is you deploy the first PSC, and then you deploy the second PSC under the same site. So when you upgrade to PSC, it prompts you for a site. So those sites don't matter much if you've got a simple install when you're a tiny shop. When you're larger, that's when it matters. And run through this whole step. So it's quite involved, as you say, and yeah. Just like I said, you've got to make sure that you configure a compatible load balancer. So your F5s and your NetScalers are definitely supported here. Coming back to my PowerPoint slide. So we've talked about that. Now, I would recommend that you move from a simple install to an external PSC if it's possible for you. The way to do it is, like I said before, so you install PSC on a new VM or a physical server, and you point vCenter to that new PSC, you point your web client to that PSC, the inventory service to that new PSC, and then you decommission your old SSO machine. We had an interesting discussion of both the other day when we've got a fair bit of sprawl of SSO machines. So the best way to go forward in that case, when you have lots of SSO machines, you want to make sure, and you want to bring down the number of SSO machines that you have, the best way to do it is to do it before you upgrade to 6.0. That's the best way forward. And I heard that in the pre-GA version of vSphere 6.0, VMware recommended 8 vCenter servers per PSC, up to 8 vCenter servers per PSC. I think it's recommended now is 4. But yeah, just make sure that you look that up. And the other considerations would be the number of VMs that you want to have. Also, just so you know, there will be some replication traffic between your PSCs. If you have external PSCs, then you will burn up additional Windows licenses. If you have a data center license, it doesn't really matter, but still the number of VMs increases and there's a slight increase in overhead when you need to patch your VMs. Backups and restores of your of the PSC, there's a fair bit to this. Just so you know, so the PSCs are kind of like domain controllers, which operate with USNs or update sequence numbers. You can't use traditional backup methods from what I gather, because the USNs then fall out of sync. You just got to make sure that you trial this in a lab first, or in your pre-prod environment, or your sandpit, or wherever you do your tests first, and make sure that your backups are good. Yeah, like I said before, a mixed environment of 5.5 and 6.0 is definitely possible. And the VMware recommend that you move all your SSO machines to 6.0. I should have said 6.0. I'll get this on the fly too quickly, but they definitely support it. It works. And the main takeaway from this is that you do them one at a time. You do not do multiple PSC. You do not upgrade multiple SSO machines to PSCs at the same time. You do them one at a time. It's quite critical. Just so you know, 5.5 vCenter servers will happily work with a PSC 6.0. There's no issues. But the 5.5 web client won't see a 6.0 vCenter server, but a 6.0 vCenter server or web client will definitely see a 5.5 vCenter server. When you move from, you can move from any iteration of vSphere 5 up to 6. So any versions of vSphere that use a database for SSO, the old database is not removed. It just sits there. Once you've upgraded to 6.0, you go in and manually remove it. So with that, I'll probably go to my lab, and we'll upgrade my SSO machine to a PSC. I'm sure you guys must have heard enough talking from me. Anyway, so I've opened up a RDP session to my SSO machine. So that's SSO 5.5. We're going to upgrade it to 6.0. So we pop the disk in. Obviously, like I said, you can do it a number of ways, but yeah, we pop a disk in for now. And I hit the install button. It just needs to do what it needs to do, extract some scripts, and it'll do a few health checks. Just make sure that it has the minimum requirements that have been satisfied. So your minimum RAM, your minimum vCPUs. Here we go. So it's detected that SSO is already deployed on this. So it says SSO 5.5 is already detected and will be upgraded to a platform service control. So this deployment turns into an external platform service controller deployment, like I talked before. So just quickly, so PSC contains your SSO, your licensing, and your VMCA or your certificate management authority. Click next, agree to the license agreement, go next again. So you supply the SSO password that you had before, which I'm going to do. Go next here, run your checks like I said before. And these checks don't take too long.
It always seems longer, though, when you're doing it live, right?
That is all right. There we go. So just those are the ports that it'll need. So it also says that the following ports must be available for this deployment. If they're not available, make sure that they're available. Not sure if you can get around this. You used to be able to, but I don't think you can anymore. So this needs to be available. And I think you can change the SSH log ports, but I'm not sure about the other two, the top two. And so the other thing about the upgrade to 6 is that it lets you choose whether you can deploy it to. And during this upgrade process, it will spit out the 5.x data to that location, and after the upgrade, that is not deleted, so you need to do it manually. So especially for your VCP test, stuff like this is quite important. They may ask you where data goes and if it'll be cleaned up after the installation is complete. It's not, so you remove this directory after the upgrade completes. You do it manually. You go next, and it's not empty. So like I said before, I've done a few dry runs, and that's why the error is. So we go in and do this on the fly here. So see program data, VMware, vCenter server, and export. So I'll just cut it and place it here. All right, go OK, and we could try it again. And yep, gone through. So, and like I said, so backups are essential. Make sure you do that. So once again, so just make sure you know all this stuff for your VCP test. I'm not saying this is in the exam, but this could be on the exam. And upgrade. So we'll wait for this to finish. I definitely won't make you wait for the vCenter upgrade to finish. So that's going to take a long time. So when this does, so like I said before, it's going to export your data onto vCenter server, and here, that's where it's done it. It's done it just then. And it stops your 5.x services, and then it removes your single sign-on 5.5, and then starts to upgrade it to 6.0. So for example, for your VCP test, once again, so they may ask you the order in which things happen, so make sure you see this. It will extract your scripts. It will extract your 5.5 data to a location that was specified before. It'll remove the product first, and then it'll install it. So make sure that you know this upgrade sequence for your VCP. In the meantime, I will get my vCenter server ready. So that's my vCenter server. And this, I think this requires a minimum of 37 gig free space. So when I was doing it last, I was running out of space, and it threw me an error saying it didn't require 37 gig free space. Got 41, that should be enough for it. So here you go, it's installing the various components. This may take a little while, so we might as well get cracking on the rest of the stuff. So I'm not going to hold you guys up forever. We talk about the vCenter upgrade in the meantime. So like I said before, the interoperability metrics and the compatibility metrics are your point of reference. Whatever you do, make sure all your components are supported in there. Make sure your database is supported, and make sure what you're upgrading to is also supported. You make sure all your rules are set up. So, you know, large environments may have database servers sitting in a different area, different part of the setup, and just make sure that all your ports are open. Once again, successful backups, can't stress this enough. And you can go from 5 to 6, from 5.1 to 6, from 5.5 to 6. If you've got 4.x hosts or 3.5 hosts, or if you live in a cave, you've got older hosts or older vCenter servers, it's best to go to 5 first and then go on further. It might just be better to do a fresh install if you are coming from 4.x, but it doesn't work for all companies. It just depends on your requirements. If you want to keep your old historical data, an upgrade is a way to go. Once again, I said before, the concurrent upgrades are not supported, so you do one thing at a time. I can't stress this enough too, one thing at one time. Before I set this lab up, I had, just to get through things quickly, I had two vCenter servers that I upgraded at the same time, and it didn't end up well. And like I said before, 6.0 can manage 5.x hosts, but link mode won't work across 6.0 and 5.5. And once again, important thing to remember for your VCP test. So link mode does not work across 6.0 and 5.5. They call it enhanced link mode now. They don't call it link mode anymore. Enhanced probably comes from the fact that it is done by the external PSC, I think. And they don't support a moving to a new machine as part of the upgrade. So if you've got vCenter server sitting on 2008 and you want to go to 2012 because the rest of the company is doing it, you don't do that as part of the upgrade, you do it before. Your third-party solutions. So, like I said before, backups must be supported. Backup vendors usually lag behind. I think a few companies are quite a big culprit in this thing. And AV, you can make sure all your AV solutions will work with 6.0, especially those which offload scanning to the host, and so there's no in-guest agents in every VM. The SQL Express database is automatically converted to a Postgres SQL database. That's done automatically, but it doesn't scale. It only does 20 hosts and 200 VMs, and I think SQL Express is no longer supported. So if you've been doing that, it's time to move off it. Larger companies would probably wish to do with a external database cluster of some sort. That's definitely supported. Just make sure once again that you check that in your compatibility metrics. The best thing is for Linux shops is that the Linux appliance now supports vPostgres at full scale, so you can have a lot of it supports up to 1,000 hosts and 10,000 VMs. That's lots. External Oracle, the SQL databases work too, but I've been reading that it may be phased out, so that may be something to keep in mind. So it's probably best to just go with the embedded Postgres at full scale. So this can be embedded and this can be external. So that's how you operate. So make sure that you do what's right for your environment. Any services that are deployed on other VMs, how you used to have the custom installed in your 5.5 version, and that's been done away with. So you can only do an embedded PSC and an external PSC. So any services that were bundled into vCenter now come into the same vCenter VM. So your web client service, your inventory service, the auto deploy, if you're running the vCenter syslog service, that's all bundled into the vCenter services. But if you use auto deploy, your host will need to be repointed. That doesn't work automatically. So you got to do that. You do that from your DHCP and your TFTP settings. I think that's been done. So yeah, so it's upgraded it to a PSA. So it says that post upgrade, what you do is you run this installer on your vCenter server to upgrade to 6.0, and the data exported is not been removed by the installer. It's just a good practice to reboot after such an upgrade. But we'll leave it as it is for now. I won't run you through all this, so this takes the longest because it needs to upgrade a database too, and it moves. So I've been using an SQL Express database in the past, and it's going to move it to a vPostgres SQL database, like I said before. So hit the install button. So that's how it presents you with a screen. So there's no more custom install or a simple install. That's the only thing you have in here. And it's definitely going to take a little while. My poor lab's being pounded. Once again, it's doing what it needs to do. Alright, so it's detected that vCenter 5.5 is installed and will be upgraded to vCenter 6.0 with an external PSC. It's detected that, and it knows that the PSC is on a different VM. So hit the next button over here, accept the agreement, go next, and you supply the vCenter password. And run its pre-upgrade checks. Laura, have there been any questions so far?
Not yet. You're doing such a good job explaining it.
Thank you. So, okay, so coming back to the installation, it throws you a warning saying that your SQL Express database will be migrated to a VMware Postgres SQL database. If you like to continue using SQL, please see that documentation. So you go up here, next here, punch in the password if I can type correctly. That may help. So so this note down here, just make sure that you provide the password of the user administrator. So after you upgrade it to 6, the old administrator password and credentials continue to work. That throws you a certification validation warning. It just says if you want to accept that, which is fine. I don't have a fancy CA certificate hierarchy working here. Once again, it lets you choose where you want to deploy it to. And again, that data will not be cleaned up. So I think I've got, in a dry run that I did, I think I've got it still sitting there. So I'm going to go in here and delete it. vCenter program, VMware tool, vCenter server, am I in the right directory? VMware. That doesn't seem like the right directory. Let's go next here anyway. I wasn't sure what that was. That directory doesn't exist. All right. Once again, so it wants you to make sure that you've backed up this vCenter machine and the embedded database. And we hit upgrade. I want to hit the upgrade button. It's going to take forever. But yeah, so it's going to run you through a whole lot of steps. It's going to upgrade the application itself, and it's going to install the database. The old database will be upgraded to a vPostgreSQL database. I won't hit the upgrade button here. So the other thing I wanted to show is when you hit the cancel button and you say you want to cancel the installation, it's just going to give you a new dialog box which says that the logs are stored in this location. So once again, for your VCP, just make sure that you know that it spits the logs out to the desktop. So if you want to view the directory or view the error logs, that's where you're going to see it. Go and finish this. So we won't do this. It's going to take forever. But that's the gist of it. So coming back to my PowerPoint slide, I think we were up to auto deploy. So the other one was when you are running the vCenter upgrade, the services on the old VMs which housed your web client or your inventory service, they keep running. The services keep running. You've got to manually shut them down. 5.1 tags that you had in vCenter, they're manually. You need to manually move them over. VMware have a Fling going for doing this. So Flings are not officially supported, but it works. But it's not supported. So our mixed environment obviously works. So you can have a Windows vCenter server and a Linux vCenter server. They work no problem at all. But you've got to have an external PSC for them to work. But the external PSC can also be either OS. It can run on a Windows machine or a Linux machine. It doesn't matter. While I was reading the documentation over these past few months, I've noticed that they've started calling vCenter a management node, among other things. Also, not among other things, but other solutions are also called management nodes. But vCenter is definitely called a management node now, which kind of makes sense. If you're running a 1000V in your environment, how you upgrade it is you upgrade your vCenter server first, then the supervisor module, and then the Ethernet module. That's how you do the upgrade for your 1000V. I'm sure quite a few people know about it, but there's no more support for new deployments of 1000V, but the existing ones are okay. I think that's the direction that VMware are moving in. They are moving in the SDN direction, of the software-defined networking direction, so that's maybe an indication of why the 1000V has been there's no more support for new deployments of it. In the meantime, I'm going to power up my lab. Enough talking. Let's do some labbing. while it connects. Might just keep going. We've done that. I think it's probably best to talk about this when I start to upgrade. And my VMs and my hosts are still coming up. But that is okay. We might as well keep talking about this. So always check with your vendor if your hardware will be supported for 6.0. Once again, I keep referring to the metrics, I know, but it's just quite essential that you make sure that your hosts will work. Usually the biggest culprits are the NIC drivers and the HBA drivers. So if you've got a white box running that was supported in 5.5, it may not be supported in 6. So just got to make sure that it works. With the host upgrade, after you do host upgrade, you'll do a VMFS upgrade too. The VMFS upgrade is seamless. There's no downtime to any VMs. Just got to make sure that if you move from a VMFS 3 to 5, the block size remains unchanged, and that's a thing to keep in mind. So when in VMFS 3, it used to let you have 3 or I think 4 kinds of block sizes. In VMFS 5, there's only one. That's 1 meg. That's the only one that's allowed anymore. So the best way to move forward is to storage vMotion your VMs from a VMFS 3 data store to a 5 data store, and then you decommission your 3 or you format it, and then you redeploy it as a 5. It's just up to you. Now with VMware moving in the vVols directions, which has no file system, there's no VMFS to worry about anymore, but for vVols to work, your array needs to support it. I don't know what I meant by that. Oh, I think by that I mean all your hosts need to be at least 5.x, so 5.0.1 is the minimum supported. If you have any hosts running on 4.x or earlier, you need to go to 5 first and then go to 6. I was talking about the certificate modes before. So if you are using custom CSI certificates, you must change the certificate mode to custom to retain your custom certificates. If you don't do this, your VMCA will issue its own self-signed certificates to your hosts, and the only way around that will be the only way after that will be to manually replace all the certificates on the hosts. And as part of the upgrade, you can also upgrade the C# client to 6.0. The C# client is, as some people may think, I thought it too, that it would go away, but it hasn't. Things like VUM still use the C# client, so it's still there. As part of the host upgrade, just got to make sure that the syslog still works. Sometimes it doesn't. I've seen that in my lab. It stops to work. If it stops to work, you just restart the syslog service. And you may need to repoint the host to your syslog collector. It's not so much of a problem when you have a login site, which is a VMware solution for logging. The host get automatically pointed to the new to login site, to the existing login site. So once again, so you can upgrade your host using VUM, auto deploy. You can pop a disk in or a USB in, or you can use a kickstart script, or you can even use ESXi if you are so inclined. So there's a lot of detail into all of this, so all the details are contained in the upgrade guide. We obviously can't cover every one of these methods. We're going to use the VUM to upgrade my host here. Any custom VIBs that you have are also migrated. As part of the upgrade, VUM will give you the option of removing these, but it's probably best to leave them in there. So VIBs are things like, your host agents that you may have, any NIC drivers, those kinds of things. It's just best to leave them there, and it's going to migrate to 6.0. I think I talked about the 4.x host before. Their boot partitions are usually smaller than 350 meg if you've upgraded them from 3.5, and if that's the case, it's best that you move to newer hardware and do a fresh install. If you can't, then the iterative upgrade, or you can script the whole thing. Some people may run a vCenter cluster. With vCenter clusters, the only way forward is a sequential remediation, because it needs to copy your VMs to other hosts. So it may take a long time. There's a particular setting that you need to tweak in the vCenter config settings, which makes it, which makes it go around that step of having to move your VMs over. Just make sure you KB the article. You can do orchestrated upgrades where which is a wizard-based workflow, which it prevents incorrect sequences. So it will do your host first, your VMs next, and there's no possibility of it going wrong. You make sure that you remove your removable devices, or if you've attached a DVD drive to your host, make sure you remove it. One won't remediate the host if the drive is still attached. And it's best to apply baselines higher in the hierarchy, just so it's easier. That's my tiny baby home lab. I've got 3 hosts here, as you can see. So vCenter is already sitting at 6.0, and I've got 1 host sitting on 6.0, just so I can demonstrate that 6.0 host and 5.5 host work in the same cluster. So that's a 6.0 host, and that's a 5.5 host right here, and the last one is also a 5.5 host. You may see that it's showing me this warning. I don't know why this is, because all these hosts, they have redundancy here, as I can quickly demonstrate. So it's got 2 NICs, 2 uplinks. But when you do the upgrade, it goes away. As you see, this host does not throw any more warnings. All right, so we go in. So coming back to VAM. You can quickly talk about it. So those are the network settings. That's the server port needs to go out to. That's the store for VAM. That's the download settings. Just quickly, we're going to run through all this. So you can add additional download sources from where you want to deploy, from where you want to pull down your ISOs. That's a shared repository for when you want to pull down patches for hosts which are in a perimeter environment or offsite somewhere where they don't have connectivity to the internet. This lets you choose a proxy settings, a proxy, and your proxy authentication settings over here. Instead of download schedule here, that's a notification check schedule where it sees if there's any updates available. So this is pretty good. So it lets you choose. It lets you take a snapshot of VMs before remediation. So obviously snapshots are good. If there's something wrong, you roll back. I think by default it lets you keep your snapshots for 24 hours. I've changed it to 1 hour. I don't need to keep them for 24 hours, especially in the lab. For production, you may want to keep it for longer. This is the bulk of the settings. So the first one is the VM power state. So when you want to upgrade your hosts, VAM will get DRS or vMotion to move your running VMs or powered off VMs to other hosts in the cluster. So if you don't want the power state or you don't want any downtime for your VMs, that's what you choose. So you do not change your power state. You can also have power off your VMs. You can suspend your VMs, and that's the default option. Again, for your VCP, stuff like this, any of these settings are fair game for the test. That's quite helpful. So temporary disable any removable devices. That's actually good. So we'll apply that. And it retries maintenance mode in case of a failure. So if a host can't enter maintenance for whatever reason, it just tried it 3 times in 5 minutes. Now I think it does it once, and then it waits for 5 minutes, and then it waits for 5 minutes, and waits for 5 minutes. It does it 3 times. That's what it is. So for cluster, if you are remediating a whole cluster, it's best to temporarily disable DPM or distributed power management. This stuff is used when you want to conserve power. So if VMs are not running, if VMs are not actively being used, DPM picks up that the VMs are not being actually used and loads low, and it moves your VMs over to other hosts, and it shuts down some hosts. It'll disable. It's good to disable. It will disable HA admission control on its own. If you don't let it do it, it's going to throw you an error and won't remediate the cluster. The fault tolerance. If you've got fault tolerance running, you got to make sure that you disable fault tolerance as well. So parallel remediation means that you can update or upgrade multiple hosts at one time. With parallel remediation, it will make sure that any DRS settings are not violated. So it'll make sure that you can have all your VMs running. It won't power off any more hosts that then are needed to support the workload that you're running. That's also good. So if you've got any powered off VMs, you may need at a later stage or during the upgrade of the host, it'll move it off to a different host and you can use them if you need to. Then we apply that, and that's a setting for Pixie booted hosts, which allows for additional software. So any custom software that you have, it'll allow that installation as well. So those are vApp settings which enable a smart reboot of your vApp. So smart reboots are when vApps reboot in the correct order. So coming back to baselines, I've quickly uploaded a ESXi 6.0 image up to my vCenter server here. And as you can see, the acceptance level is partner. That's the creation date, and I've created a baseline and named it upgrade to 6. That's quite intuitive. So coming back to my cluster, we're going to upgrade a host to 2. So just so you, like I said before, I've got a 6 host running, and there's 2 5.5 hosts here. So I ran a quick, I've attached, no, I think I got rid of it. No, the attached baseline. So the baseline is already attached. So you could either attach a baseline by individual baselines, or you can attach a baseline group. So baseline groups let you do things like host extensions and host patches at the same time. So that's like an orchestrated upgrade. That's a long word, isn't it? Orchestrated upgrade. So if you run a scan on this, on the whole cluster, we're going to scan it for any upgrades. It just goes out and scans the entire cluster, and it's just going to throw this message here. It's just going to say that one host is compliant and the others are not. Oh, this will change not compliant, and this blue will change to red, I think.
I always used to run into problems where it would just remain unknown, and I'd have to like reboot the host, and then also it would work.
I remember that too. We quickly talk about staging and remediation while this happens. So staging is when you've got multiple hosts sitting in remote locations. So it lets you get your host ready for the upgrade to 6. So the patches go across to that host, and they sit in some location. I think it's in memory or somewhere. And when you actually remediate the host, that's when it actually starts to upgrade to 6. That's just preempting the install or the upgrade. When I did my dry run, it didn't take this long. In the meantime, I'm just going to power up a couple of VMs just to demonstrate the behavior of powered on VMs and powered off VMs. But just quickly see where these VMs are sitting. So ADC, so AZ, okay, brilliant. That host has gone red for some reason. That might just be a usage alarm. These hosts are tiny. Okay, I don't know what that was. Green to red, it was green to red, green to red. Oh. There's a quick network partition occurred there for some reason. Things like this, just quirky things like this always occur in a home lab. So coming back to the update manager, and sure enough, so this is green, so there's one host that is compliant, the others are not. So like I said before, you can stage it or you can quickly remediate it. So we just quickly remediate the whole cluster. So what it's going to do is, that's already upgraded, so we won't do that. And we won't do, it's going to take a long time. So we will upgrade 6 to 6.0. So that's the baseline that I've chosen. Like I said before, you can have a baseline group too, if you wanted, for an orchestrated upgrade. You go next here, you accept the EULA. You know warning about any unsupported hardware devices. It just tells you that you've got to make sure that any older VMFS data stores are that you actually moved off them, and there's no unsupported hardware devices, for example, your DVD drives, and anything else that you may have. Go next, your task description, and you go say now. You can choose when to remediate host immediately or a time of your choosing, maybe when you've scheduled your outage window. Probably good to be able to do that. So, if you've got your outage window from, let's say, from 8 p.m., you can change that to 8 p.m. We go next. Let's say, if you remember, we talked about that in the VUM settings. So we won't change the VM power state. We remove any devices connected to VMs on the host, and we'll retry maintenance mode in case the host refuses to go into maintenance. So next here. And so the cluster settings once again. So these check marks come from the VUM settings. So you can override them here if you wanted to. You can also generate a report if you wanted to. Let's see what happens. Right. CD drive attached, disconnected. So yeah, so it's got a disconnected. It's got a connected DVD drive, which it will disconnect as part of this. So HA will be disabled as part of this. It's not HA, but HA admission control will be disabled as part of this. And EVC doesn't generally work in a nested home lab like I have here. So that's what the error is about. Go next, and we go next here. And hopefully there shouldn't be any error. If there's any errors, we will fix them. So as you can see, it is starting to remediate this entity, and it could take a little while to do this. So while this happens, we will go back to our PowerPoint slide. So any questions so far, Lauren, anywhere?
Nope, all good still.
That's good. That seems to be going fine. No error so far. Would have bombed out by now if there was an error. It's actually good. As you may see, if you go into my cluster here, I think it's just changed my HA settings from admission control being enabled to disabled. So, like I said before, why this is doing this is because as part of the upgrade, it may need to put hosts into maintenance. When it's doing that, it needs to move your VMs off, and if you've got strict admission control enabled, it may not be able to remediate your hosts. That's why it does this. All right, so back to my PowerPoint. So after you've done your host upgrades, you do your VM upgrades or virtual machine upgrades. So that's an optional upgrade. You don't need to do it, but it's obviously good to do it along with the hosts or after your hosts have been done. And VMware permit wide latitude, so you can. I think it let you do N-4, N-5 hardware versions of your VMs. It's best to update them anyway for performance. So when you upgrade to a newer version of VMware hardware, quite a few drivers and enhanced features that show up will only be activated on the VM when the hardware has been upgraded. So it's best to do that. Same thing for compliance. So you may be in a company which has strict compliance control, and they want to make sure that when you upgrade your host, your VMs are upgraded as well for security purposes too, and for backups as well. So some backup products only work with a upgraded version of VMware tools. So if that's the case, it's just best to do your VMware VM tools upgrade as well. And once again, rolling upgrades are permitted in environments which have tens of thousands of VMs. They definitely permit rolling upgrades, so you won't be able to upgrade all of them in one go. In larger companies, for example, because there's so many VMs and so many hosts and so many vCenter servers to upgrade, rolling upgrades are the norm. So by the time you finish upgrading one of them, the other version is already out, and you're just continually doing these upgrades. For VM upgrades, it's just best to use VUM for multiple VMs. The web client lets you do it too, but only one VM at a time and one upgrade at a time. It's just best to use VUM. So VUM lets you do multiple VMs if you're so inclined. You do not need to reboot your VMs as part of the VM tools installation, but reboots may be required to take advantage of new features, especially for Windows VMs, because several hardware changes require the VM to be rebooted. And orchestrated upgrades are definitely permitted, so you can upgrade tools and VMware hardware at the same time, or as part of the upgrade. So while my host is being upgraded, so the current progress is, you can say, 0 host completed. All right, go back to my PowerPoint. File upgrades. If you got any file upgrades, you check your logs. Once again, good to know for your VCP. All this, the logs are stored there and in that location. That's for your Windows vCenter server. Automatically, like I said before, like I showed before, if you were to cancel your vCenter upgrade, that's where the logs go and sit in the Windows on your Windows desktop in a zip file. Once again, it's good to know for your VCP, your log location, and how to generate your log bundles. So just gotta make sure that you do this, you lab this up too. And restore connectivity if your upgrade fails. So if, as part of the upgrade, if you got an external PSE, if you got an external SSO machine and a vCenter server, as part when you upgrade the SSO machine to a PSA and the upgrade somehow fails, don't panic. Spin up a new VM, install the PSE on it, and point your vCenter server to that PSA. And probably maybe a good idea to call up VMware support too and see if there's any other thing that they can suggest. Well, PowerPoint has come to an end. I've exhausted all that. So we guys go back to my lab here. So you can see that the host has now gone into maintenance. Right there. And after this upgrade, it's just going to bring it out of maintenance as well. It did not need to, by the looks of it, did not need to. I did need to migrate one machine, migrated VM11 to somewhere, to some other host. Sure enough, it goes disconnected, it's going to come back. There's no need to panic. It's a note to self. Let's take a look at the VMs themselves. So that's my set of VMs that I'm going to be upgrading as part of this lab. So what I've done is I've attached a baseline, created a baseline called a VM group, or baseline group. That's what I've called it, VMware upgrade group. So once again, so baseline groups let you combine multiple things, so you can have a VMware tools upgrade and a hardware upgrade too. Do it at the same time. That's what an orchestrated upgrade is. So you can say 25% is compliant. So there's 4 VMs, one's compliant, and the other 3 are not. For remediation, the VMs need to be powered up. So we go and power them up as well. If a VM's not powered on, powered on, VMware tools can't be installed. If a VM's powered off and you need to upgrade it, upgrade the VM hardware, you can do that. VUM will wake up the VM. It will upgrade the hardware and then shut it down again. We can quickly talk about the VMware tool upgrade settings right here. So that lets you do, that makes the system aware that when the VM is being power cycled next, it will automatically upgrade VMware tools on it. May or may not be a good idea. Probably would work in a development environment or a test environment, but yeah. So they might as well remediate. So once again, so we run a scan on this just to show what happens. So there's no vApps here, so I won't be choosing the virtual appliance upgrade as for vApps, and that's your VMware tools, and that's the VMware upgrade, hardware upgrade. So we go scan it, and we wait for it to finish.
Have you run into any upgrading problems, Manny, or has it been pretty smooth?
I think it's been pretty smooth. It's a tiny lab, like I said, so I haven't run into any problem yet. At my work, we've got a much larger environment. I'm sure we'll have some issues there. Have you run into any, Lauren?
No, I haven't, and I've actually done it a couple times. It's been a little while, but yeah, from what I recall, it was pretty smooth.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. You gotta love VUM. It's just absolutely fantastic. And VUM should have been ready for prime time. Apparently, it's not, and that's why you got to use the C# client to do it. I think I mentioned that you can use a web client, but you can only upgrade one VMware.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, the only disappointing thing about VUM is, yeah, having to have a Windows server for it still, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And I think it's got for because I'm already remediating one entity in the cluster. It may not run this till that's finished, I think. Might as well talk about any other VUM settings that I may have in here. So the patch repository, that's populated if you pull down your patches from VMware.com or the settings that you have, all the URLs that you have here, you can pull it down from there. So ESXi images, so you can upload the right ESXi image, and that's what it's going to use to upgrade your hosts. I think that's pretty much it, really. Not a whole lot to this. All right, that's gone in progress somehow. That's a good thing. I swear to God, it did not take this long before.
Watched pot.
Yep. Again, for your VCP, stuff like the admin view and the difference between the admin view and the compliance view is quite handy. So the admin view lets you, set up your baselines and your baseline groups. You can combine your baselines, and the compliance view lets you check if your entities are compliant to the baseline that you've deployed.
So from what I remember, if you upgrade your VMs to 10, you have to manage like the settings and stuff from the web client. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. Well, I think you can still. I think it's 11 and up, or 11 when you can't do anything in the web client. Or without the web client. Before that, I think you can't do most things, but you can still do things such as bumping up the vCPUs or the RAM or attaching a new NIC. I think you can still do that. But with 11, definitely you need the web client. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll know this. I got a kind of random Twitter question, not really vBrownbag, but did anything replace vCenter Heartbeat in 6.0? And that's not really the topic you're talking about, but yeah.
Not that I know of. Yeah. I think that's obviously a deprecated product, and I don't think they've replaced it with something else.
Okay.
While we're at it, we might as well Google it up. Might as well take a look at what my host is doing here. So that was C. All right. So as you can see, it has moved it up to 6.0, and it is caching some required files. So definitely doing something.
Nothing like staring at that gray and yellow box, right?
Didn't it change to a blue box?
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it will. So let's look at this one that has already been upgraded. Oh, no, it's yellow. Wow. I thought it was wearing the blue.
For some reason, I thought that was you were right on that too, though.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't. I,
So yeah, so after the upgrade, it says it's gonna operate in the evaluation mode for 60 days, and you gotta put them licensed in manually. Once again, a VCP level question. You need to reapply your licenses after the upgrade. All right, it's rebooted. So VAM's doing all this. Good old VAM. All right, let's go back to my should probably quickly talk about the VCSA upgrade, which I can't run in my lab. So I couldn't find a VMware article for this, which is kind of strange, but so.
there was the blue, though. You just saw it.
Yeah. Oh, right here. Yeah, that's right.
It was just the VCA.
Right, so that's for the VCSA. It doesn't look
Yeah.
like it's for the host. Yeah. Just once again, so pretty good points here. You just got to make sure that you do a backup and you create a snapshot of your existing VCSA. Got to make sure that your SSL certificates are still valid. There's a pretty good VMware article about the SSL certificates here. That walked you through how to do it. I think I did a blog about this too. Again, you make sure the clocks work, clocks are synced, and DNS. I don't think he's mentioned DNS, but it's kind of a given. But just putting it out there that you got to make sure that DNS is pretty robust. Probably already is, but yeah. Again, VCP level question. DNS must work for sanity. If you're an external database SQL, for example, you must sure you must sure that you back it up. Once again, backups are essential. So what he's done is he's popped the disk in and he's extracted the disk and he's double-clicked that file and lets you install or upgrade. And if you hit the upgrade button and it detects that you've installed, is he installing or is he upgrading? Must find upgrade. Not sure what he's doing. He's doing an upgrade. Okay, upgrade. So he's doing an upgrade. So obviously it's already installed and he's doing an upgrade here. So runs you through the various settings, your vCenter server IP address and your fully qualified domain name, various settings here. All your SSL settings. We should continue. This is the size of the appliance, so small environments go tiny, and larger environments obviously go larger. Like I said before, it's supposed to have 1,000 hosts and 10,000 VMs. I think that's 10,000 total VMs, not powered on VMs. So just make sure that you've looked at the VMware maximums. And I think for the VCP test, they have done away with asking questions directly from the maximums document. So you don't need to memorize most stuff. Probably good to know, but at least for bragging rights. But I don't think they're going to ask you anything from the maximums. So I'll ask you to select a data store, and it needs a minimum of 120 gig of disk space. Just got to make sure that that's available. Otherwise, it's going to bomb the upgrade. So the next page is networking. Note that we actually do not do an in-place upgrade, or rather a side-by-side upgrade. So okay, side-by-side upgrade. So it's, when he says side-by-side, it means that he's running the older and the newer at the same time. So when he sets up the new appliance, it'll automatically pull the historical data from the other and to the new one, and it leaves the old VCSS still running. And it took him 20 minutes to upgrade. And the blue box. Wow.
chugging.
Yep. While we wait for this, I've been checking out the vExpert lab that they have available over at Revelo Systems. That's pretty handy. And it obviously is going to be much faster than this, but you require fast internet for that, just so you know. But it works a treat. It's brilliant. It's a pretty AWS-like interface, and let you run up labs for free, provided you're a vExpert. All right, that's good. So that's upgraded. It's fantastic. Go back to that, and it's still showing up as disconnected for some reason. Come on, don't let me down. All right, so that's in maintenance, and it's going to exit maintenance mode. Refreshing network, and it's configuring HA. Boom, done. So as you can see, that the warning is gone. Like I said before, this host still has a warning. Could be upgraded. This warning is gone from this, so and it is at 6.0. And then obviously, once it finishes, it's just going to re-enable your admission control. Don't know if it's done it yet. No, it's not done yet. It'll do it. That's just a temporary thing. Again, a VCP level question. Just got to make sure you know all those settings in VUM. Anything in VUM is fair game. I don't know why it's sitting at 86% now. Should have finished it. Great, yep. It still shows up as non-compliant. I won't run a scan right now because there's already 2 tasks running. It may make it take longer. But once it finishes, we just quickly do a scan and just show you that it's going to turn into a lovely green compliant button. Well, sphere. It's not a button. Well, for my next brown bag, I'll make sure that I run a defrag on all my disks here. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. All right, it went green automatically on its own. That's good stuff. And it has scanned the VMs as well. That's brilliant. And we go into Update Manager, and sure enough, the 50% are compliant, 1 isn't, and 1 is not compatible. Well, I think non-compatible is probably because it's not running VMware tool at all. Yeah, exactly. So if it's not running VMware tools, that's the error that you're going to get. Where was I? Right here. That's the error that you're going to get. So incompatible won't do it. So you need to have VMware tools running on the VM to be able to remediate it, which kind of makes sense. But yeah, just putting it out there. So if you remediate them, so it's just not compliant. So we're going to do 11 and not 13. And we will hit the next button. And obviously, task name is, give it something intuitive. Task description now. So you can obviously schedule the upgrade at specific times when you can schedule downtime for it. And you go next here. If you want, you can create a snapshot. You can choose not delete snapshot, which is not a good idea. You don't want to keep snapshots forever. Snapshots actually decrease performance of your VMs because it's just not a good thing, basically. So you keep them for about an hour. If you take a snapshot of the memory, it returns the VM to the original state of if it was powered off, it'll go back to powered off. If it's powered on, it's just going to go back to powered on. So that's just going to take longer too and occupy more disk space. I don't want that, so we won't take a snapshot of the memory. Go next here and finish. So we're just going to do this against VM11 only. So if we watch VM11, it's running. As you can see, the VMware tools are running. They're out of date. The VMware version is 10. It's going to move it up to 11, and it's going to bump up the VMware tools up to the latest version too. This is going to stay up to date, as it says here, running or current. That's what it's going to say, running and current. So all right, it's not the latest version supported to I don't know what's been the latest version. Okay. Okay. All right. Just detach it, and VMware tools must be the latest version. Okay. That's how I would have done it. Okay, that's looking good. So it'll do a power cycle of the VM if it needs to.
So to correct me if I'm wrong, to go from 10 to 11, you shouldn't have to restart, right? It's just anything
You
before
shouldn't have. No,
10?
no, you don't. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't. But obviously, to take advantage of the new features, you will need to restart. Yeah. And VMware recommend that you do a reboot of your VMs as soon as you can. You don't have to do it right away, but it's probably best to do it as soon as you can to take advantage of the new features.
Got it.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it from me. This could take a little while too. So, Lauren, if there's no other questions, we might call it a day.
No, I think that's it. That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. It was brilliant to come here and present for the first time. It's amazing.
Well, we hope you come back soon.
I definitely will. I'm coming back after VMware. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Manny. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.